Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. I'm Nicholas Sacco, your host for this week's episode 33 of Season 5, or episode 146, if you're counting from the beginning. And just in case you needed another reminder that we're premiers in 2023, we've got a big season review episode for you today. We'll go through the goods, the very goods, and the great moments of the year that has passed and celebrate in our premiership glory even more. Plus, we'll chat a bit about trade and list movements, as well as last week's Copeland Trophy. And as I have for the most part of September and now into October, I've got a full studio with me to go through what's been a terrific year. Jack, Luke, and Marcus, boys, have we recovered yet from the last fortnight and a bit of what's been, no doubt, the best day of our lives?
Nico, boys, great to be back. I think it's all started to settle in now, and to be honest, I had my brother's Bucks on the weekend, so I'm probably sounding a bit like I did after the grand final, Lukey. But I was actually on Swan Street, Richmond, for part of my evening, just gone, and my brother was down that way after the granny, and I actually went up Smith Street, Collingwood, which was also electric. But he was reminding me of some van blockading Swan Street, Richmond, and lots of astute Collingwood supporters electing to jump on top of the van and celebrate it. It was a bit of nostalgia, Nico, sort of reliving that aspect of the craziness and the magic that a grand final win brings. So just settling into that feeling again, being here in the studio, and it doesn't feel like 2 weeks, does it, Lukey?
No, it actually feels like it's been about a month. But it's been nice to kind of, chill out a bit and soak it all in and get all the highlights and the interviews and just really delve into that special day. So it'll be good to chat about it all again today, and I guess the season as well.
And your tats, we have to get straight off the top because you've gotten straight onto it, if you can see in the camera. Yeah, so there's your flag pies one. You've got another one on your chest. So
on my heart.
So be going very well if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Just check my Instagram.
What we will say is they're better than some of the ones we have seen.
No, there's been a few dodgy ones, but some really nice ones as well. So shout out to everyone who's got a tat or who's planning to get one. I hope to see you three boys. Maybe we'll get a Pies Nation matching tattoo.
Well, it's funny you say that because we'll get to Jack in a moment, but our new player, who we'll get to later on, cheeky leg tat for him. So looking forward to having a chat about that.
Already ticked a few boxes, hasn't he?
Tick,
looking
tick,
forward
tick.
to that. Jack, have you rested easy over the last week or so?
Yeah, mate, it's been really good. Straight back into work after the grand final, so back to reality, and then was part of organising a fishing comp for one of my mates who passed last year, so got straight into that, Nico. So just been a really crazy couple of weeks, really off the back of a premiership. But I think this week really is probably the first week that I've allowed myself to really settle into the fact that we are premiers, and watching back over tape and seeing photos and stuff this week and really soaking all in. Yeah, it's a pretty special time to be a Collingwood supporter, and still brings a tear to the eye to see, especially the group photo when Oleg sitting in the middle of them all with the premiership cup. It's just my favourite photo of the whole thing, and pinch yourself stuff.
Oh, there's a million photos I reckon we could go through on the day that are our favourites, but yeah, that's definitely one as well to talk about. Has it hit yet, boys, that we are premiers, or is it still lingering in the back of your mind a bit?
Absolutely, it has. Yeah, I'm so
Especially when you're drinking
yes,
premiership beers.
Get around it.
Yeah, thank you. Was that you, Jack, who
Yeah.
brought these in very kindly? We're just debating whether you hold on to them or whether you
I
consume
think we're going to
them.
go with keep the slab box and keep a 6-pack, drink the rest.
Yeah.
And they definitely taste better.
Can you frame the box? Like, just to make sure it remains intact, like a 3D frame? Surely that's been
Someone will have
invented,
done that.
hey?
Someone will have done that.
Yeah.
Some supporter would have.
black and white frame
And you could sell it for thousands.
Oh, that's
the
cool.
way they're selling some of this merch as well. I don't know about you boys, but I'm about broke right now.
How much you spent?
No, don't ask. They're making merch for absolutely everything. Just chuck on Collingwood Premiers 23 and you'll sell it. So good on them, but just toned down a little on a few.
But if you want the
Toned
best
down.
merch, Luke, you got to
Pies
head to the
Nation.
Pies Nation store.
Yes.
We've got it all
Cracker
covered.
designs on there as
Yeah,
well.
there's some great ones. Just had our Dacos one released as well, so be sure to get involved with
and
that.
a few more to come,
Oh,
Nico.
yes,
I think
there are
so.
some great designs on our way, so that's great. All right, well, let's dive into the season review then. Now, obviously, there's some questions here that we've asked in previous years, like a season grade or your best moment, which are going to be pretty obvious. So I've tried to change it up a little bit for you boys, but without further ado, let's get right into it with our best win, not including the grand final. So what's your best win of the year, Jack?
I went with Port away, Nico. We spoke about it in the lead up to that game. From a personal standpoint, it was my first real cutthroat away day. All the other away days that I'd been to were sort of against non-footy footy state teams such as your Brisbanes, your GWSs and all that. Not that they weren't great, but this is my first time going to Adelaide against Port Adelaide. At the time, it was 1v2. It was set up as a bit of a grand final preview, not to be. Shout out to Port going out straight sets, but really was one of the best games of footy of home and away that I've ever been to. It gets thrown around so much about like this finals-like pressure and whatnot throughout the course of every season, but I felt that was where it really rang true in that game. It was as close to finals footy as you're going to get without playing it, and to be there live with my mate Liam and his mum was just so special, and yeah, we had a good night after that, didn't we, Lukey? So that was a memorable one for
Few
me.
bus stops.
Yeah, that's it.
Lukey, topic?
Well, that was my game as well, but Jack's already touched on it. But yeah, absolute ripper game, ripper experience that whole trip. I'll go with the prelim. We're allowed finals, yeah.
Yeah,
The
just not
prelim against GWS, one of the, probably the best night I'll ever have as a Collingwood supporter. I know the grand final win was epic, but that game was just something else. And just the elation and I guess the monkey off the shoulders just to win that game and get through. I felt not super confident going into the next week, but I'm like, at least we're there now. Whereas the prelim was a bit, jitters, nervous. This whole year could be for nothing. And to nearly blow it, 2019 coming back. So, yeah, that was definitely a night that I'll remember forever. And 95,000 Collingwood supporters as well, which the following week, of course, being there at the grand final was epic, but you didn't get the true Collingwood army like you did in that prelim. So I think that night was one that'll stick in the memory bank for a very long time.
Beautiful reflections, boys. I've actually gone with Anzac Day.
Yeah, nice.
And the
Feels
reason...
like a while ago now.
The reason that's my favourite game of the year is because I said it at the time, and I think we'll look back on years to come as that was, for me, the true arrival of Nick Dacos. I know he's already won the Rising Star before it, and he's already announced himself to the competition, but he took over in that second half, and to kick the goal to put us ahead, and I can't remember how many touches he had in that last term, but I think I referred to it at the time as a generational performance, and I stand by that because he, since then, obviously, if the injury was no good, but just has gone to another level, and he once again showed us throughout the finals when he could play why he's just such a damaging force. So Anzac Day for me, Nico, nothing better than beating the filthy Essendon Football Club.
Well, except Carlton, which I could have easily gone to, beating them in the first half of the year. All great wins. I'll go a little bit different too. I'll say to Melbourne qualifying final. Just, it was built up as such a massive game. We spoke about how important it was in our premiership run. We started really well and were able to hold our nerve. I think that was a true showing of everything that we've put towards that season coming together on that day. Of course, your grand final is where you do that as well, but just the satisfaction of beating Melbourne, knowing what was to come afterwards, but just also the way we played that game and how measured and how professional we went about it. It just really impressed me and sort of got into my mind a little bit more as, okay, this is a side that can really do damage in September, and it was proven once again because losing that game, you go a long way around. There's a lot of murmurs about your form and where we do start to look towards in terms of premiership hopes. So for us to have gotten that win in the qualifying final, again, knowing what was to come from the salty Melbourne fans after was just extraordinary. So that's the one I've gone with there. Your MVP for 2023.
Yeah, shout out to the moral victory Melbourne supporters who are really enjoying their second straight set loss. And Stephen May, that was
Still going on about
it. I could not believe that.
What are they? The expected score premiers. So.
Yeah.
Hashtag cheese boards.
Yeah.
Congratulations to them.
My MVP is the man that Marcus touched on, Nico. In the preseason, how do we call it?
Pre-season
Preview,
Preview.
yep. A preview,
That's how
yep.
it works.
Mm-hmm.
I said that Nick Dacos needed to have a massive year. Improving on his Rising Star year would have been a monumental effort. And now we sit here at the end of the year, and Luke mentions it all the time. The standards that he set for himself are just so above and beyond what we ever expected. So when he does have a good game, it's almost like, oh well, we know how good he really can be. So it's just average Nick Dacos, move on. But this year has been a special year from Nick Dacos. He was really one game off a Brownlow. Let's be honest. If he had to play one more game and got votes in it, he wins the Brownlow. It's as simple as that. In his second year ever of AFL football, just ridiculous. So he improved tenfold on his season last year, and he was my most valuable player for us, the Pies, Lukey.
It's probably mine too, but I'll go with his brother Josh, who did get his just reward in the BNF. I thought. Not surprising, but I guess he doesn't always get the plaudits that I think he deserves across the board, and it was just nice to see that those who vote in the Copeland Trophy gave him those just rewards, and he was able to take home a BNF in a premiership year, which is probably the highest honour you can have, really. So Josh, he had probably a quieter last month, which was a touch disappointing. Still played his role extremely well, but before that had an exceptional home and away season. So Josh was my MVP. What about you, Marcus?
Yeah, look, I mean, Darcy Moore comes to mind, parts early on in the season, helping set up an incredible year. But really, it is hard to look past those three guys who end up in the All-Australian team. Honourable mention probably to Isaac Quaynor, who made the All-Australian squad for the year that he put together. But I really can't go past Nick Dacos, similar to Jacko. Coming off the back, what I just said about Anzac Day and what he was able to put together. And yeah, exactly right. He probably wins a Copeland too had he played a game or two more as well. So asterisks over the lack of official medals that he doesn't get for this year, but it's just so close to being quite possibly like a Gavin Wanganeen type year in the history of the game. But it'll never be remembered as that. But when he's got a premiership medal around his neck, couldn't care less, Nico.
Doesn't matter one bit, that's for sure. I'll keep it short and sweet. Nick Dacos, not just my MVP for the club, MVP for the competition, let's be honest. He was the best player going around.
He was the best young player I think he won that award.
Won the Coaches Award, Coaches Association, best young player. He was the best player in the competition, let's face it.
Not best young player, best
the
player.
best, just hands down. And all the expectations we had of him coming up to the start of the year just blew him right apart. The sky's the limit for this kid, and I'm so glad we've got him at this club for a long, long time. So very excited to what he can produce. Best finals player. Who's the one that stood up the most throughout our three finals matches this year?
Interesting one. I probably went reasonably obvious for my first two. Tried to go a little bit different for this one, Nico. Jack Crisp was my best finals player. A strange year for Crispy on the whole. I think with Nick Dacos going to the guts and Markov and Noble sort of coming off the halfback, it was probably a tough year for Crispy to get any sort of continuity in his form this year. But then come finals time, we got a vintage Jack Crisp, and we got a goal a game and 20 possessions, which, when you're winning games by a kick or less, those are worth the weight in gold. So he was one I felt that come the finals time, he's our back-to-back Copeland medal winner for a reason. That was before Josh won, obviously. But yeah, he stood up, and we got vintage Crispy, and without him, I'd be really worried for where we'd be at, Lukey.
And he was the guy that stood up in the moments where we were kind of out of it a bit.
Yeah,
each of those
absolutely.
three finals. So for me, it was Jordan De Goey purely for his last two, the prelim and the granny. Prelim was probably the best game he's ever played, and then the was it the prelim? I'm getting my guess.
13
absolutely.
clearances.
Yeah, the prelim, and then the granny. Not as good, but God, his two goals stand in Collingwood folklore. The first one, obviously, he just knew he was going to kick it somehow from 60, and then that second goal.
70, wasn't it?
And then that second goal, the centre clearance, Nick Pendle's Coxie. It's honestly, I think for me, it's the best Collingwood moment ever.
How many times you watched it?
I've watched it a lot with every different commentary there. It's
Every angle.
Every angle. It is. I know Steele's goal was the next one, and that'll go down as the one that won us the grand final. But I think the De Goey goal for me is the one that got us that premiership. So
Spine tingling, isn't it? Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah,
Marcus?
I reckon I've watched it more, so let's compete in the off-season.
Yeah.
Look, I can't. Again, sorry to keep agreeing with Jacko, but I can't go past Crispy. What's the medal for the best finals MVP?
Gary Ayres medal they get. I don't know who ended up getting
Sam
that.
Walsh.
Sam
Good on him.
Walsh
You can have
was
it.
unbelievable in the finals, but
But did
Chris-
he win?
no, he didn't because he plays for Carlton. But Crispy was our highest vote getter for the final series, and not that you always have to agree with what the professionals say, but genuinely do believe that you make a really good point, Luke, and I reckon we've mentioned it before, that Jack Crisp has this incredible capacity to help the team turn momentum back our way. He takes runs through the middle. He does things that may a high risk, high reward, but that is how we get ourselves back into games when we somehow find ourselves in a mess. And it wasn't just in the home and away season that he did that. It was in the final series, and his grand final performance, I think, was 25 possessions and 2 goals. Like, that is as good as it gets. And we know that good players become great players in grand finals. And along with these 2 BNFs after 12 seasons in the system, set of steak knives, if you don't mind.
Well, speaking of players becoming great players in grand finals, I thought Bobby Hill was our best finals player this year. I mean, on top of the fact that he wins enormous medal for his grand final performance, but I think his efforts in the qualifying final were just as crucial.
Yep.
Finished with 3 goals and really got us going in that first term with his 2 majors and the first one of the match that really just set everyone off to an absolute party in that MCG game. Just incredible. But yeah, I thought his tackling pressure was exceptional. He went to another level inside 50. He was just such a threat for those defenders that he was up against throughout the whole finals campaign. It was like he had played in finals for years gone by, and he never really had that experience. But when we brought him into the club 12 months ago, we felt like he was a big-time player, and he just didn't have that opportunity at GWS. Came in and delivered in spades. I mean, he finished with 33 goals for the season, but the 8 goals he kicked in those 3 finals will go down as goals that I feel like, especially when those margins were really close, were goals that won us those games in the grand final in the end. So very impressed with Bobby Hill. Let's move on to who is your biggest improver in 2023?
Well, I'm repeating myself now, Nico, but I've gone with Nick Dacos again. I think it's forgotten the year that he had last year, and I don't want to repeat myself too much, but he had an incredible first season, rising star, tick, you move on. And then to improve on that in the way that he has, like, no one foreseen Nick Dacos to be an inside midfielder for another 3 or 4 years until he was really able to build size and get used to the flow of the game. And then all of a sudden, halfway through the year, we throw him in there against the Dogs, and he's got 35 and 20 contested possessions and 2 goals. Like, this is not stuff of legend. Maybe that's a bit too far. But for his age, and then from where he's come from in such a short space of time, again, we forget about how far that leap is because we set such high, lofty standards for him. But yeah, I think his improvement in such a short space of time, and then to even fathom the fact that if he gets 10% better next year, just what that looks like.
How does he improve?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, crazy.
On that note, the number of top 10 draft picks that have second-year blues is ridiculous.
Well, that was all the pressure that came for the second year.
Completely. So for him to absorb that, transform his game, go to another level, I actually think he put on, before he got injured, I still think he put on size throughout the year. Like, he's obviously still developing as an athlete, but such a good call, Jacko, just in terms of the way that he adapted to not just being the halfback guy who gets uncontested possessions, to being, like, people talk about Sam Walsh being the hardest gut runner in the league, and like, he deserves that. But Nick is not far behind, and I think that he's that good. He could probably take that mantle in the coming season. So great call.
Perfect. Luke?
For me, I'm going to go with Leggy. To be honest, I didn't watch a lot of him previous to being at Collingwood, but clearly he was delisted from a couple of
He's
clubs.
got your heart now,
and
hasn't
he to then go from that to almost ending up at Carlton. And shout out to that Mad Monday little gag. Carlton fans did
Like
not
that,
like
Nick?
that.
Gold.
Well,
Gold.
Carlton
I've
fans
got it framed
didn't.
up in my room. That's how good he was.
But yeah, to go from being delisted from a couple of clubs, not knowing where he was kind of at the end of last year, start of this year, end up at Collingwood and play such a pivotal role in a premiership side. You get to the second half, third half of the year, and people couldn't even question his spot in the side. That's how locked into that sort of 22, 23 that he was, and ended up forcing Johnny Nobes out. So yeah, shout out to Oleg. He had a fantastic finish to the year, and he deserves every plaudit that comes his way.
He's on Swish now as well.
Everyone
apparently,
is. They're
so-
raking it in.
He's also just an absolute legend of a person, it seems. So hopefully, if he's listening, we'd love to have you on, Ollie.
I'd love to have Ollie on for sure. Look, I feel like I've said my bit on this one. Again, just agreeing with Jack all episode, Nico. But if I'm being authentic, that's Nick Dacos is my biggest improver as well. So
I thought you would have gone with one of your favourites, Isaac Quainer. Had to be a
he was
big
He
improver.
was my other one.
I thought for not just to make the All-Australian squad of 40, but just for the way he was able to go about it in that back line. Was just
absolutely an honourable mention. But I think if we're going with the cold hard facts, like Nick, just just a word on cue. I think that I can genuinely see in about 6 to 7 years' time, Nick Dacos is the captain and Isaac Quainer is the vice captain of the Collingwood Footy Club. I don't think that's out of the question based on the type of profile that they both have as athletes, but also the way they carry themselves off the field. Both good Oakley Chargers boys, so I think we're in good hands for the next decade or so, Nick.
He was exceptional this year, Isaac Quainer. Took his game to another level as well in that defensive 50, and he just doesn't let anyone get in his way. He'll win all those one-on-one contests. His intercept marking was superb as well, and he'll be in that All-Australian team. Don't you worry about that. It will
big
come.
final series as well.
And sorry, just a final word on him. I think something that was missed was that because we had Murph and Howie kind of in and out of the team, Das carrying that tall defender role, Billy Frampton coming in, because it's a team defence, we managed to find a way so many times throughout the year. But because Quaynor is so strong and he's got such an incredible vertical leap, I feel as if it's kind of gone unnoticed how often he covered and was that guy coming across and just getting to balls you should not be getting to in order to create a Harvard or get it out of bounds. So thank you for bringing that up, Nico. I think you also deserves a massive rap for his season.
Most influential recruits.
For all of them, Nico. I mean, shout out to our recruiting staff for the work they did during this time last year. That we filled every piece of the puzzle just about, and unfortunately, Dan McStay wasn't able to get out there on the final day. But yeah, they were amazing. But the most influential recruit for mine was Tommy Mitchell. He's been probably the missing puzzle to a Collingwood side the past 5 years. And to be honest, I think I was wrapped up in Tommy Mitchell's form from 2022. It's interesting listening to him on his podcast of a wrap up with the premiership on ball magnets around how what he loves doing and his role was lost in his last year at Hawthorn, and he was not forced out, but it was the writing was on the wall very much about where he was placed within where that club was going in their future. So to land him and just to say to him, go in there, get your hands on the footy, and if you don't get your hands on the footy, make sure you're the first with hands on hips. And he executed that all year pretty much. A few downwards patches towards the end of the year, maybe carrying a niggle, who knows. But the proof was in the pudding on grand final day because Tommy Mitchell was there again, getting his hands on it first use, allowing blokes like Nick Dacos, Jordan DeGoey, Scott Pendlebury on the outside to play the games they do. He's the great enabler, I think, Tommy Mitchell. What he unlocks for so many players in our team is just so underrated, and he's right throughout this year was able to pop up on the scoreboard as well, so he had a monumental year, and that's the reason why he's my most influential recruit, Lukey.
Exactly same thoughts as you, but I'll touch on Bobby Hill. Obviously wins the Norm Smith and has a fantastic final series like we just touched on, but he actually did have a really good season as well. Popped in and out at a few points of the year, had a few weeks where he kind of would go a little bit missing, but for the most part he was doing his job, doing his role, getting on the scoreboard, but also moving up and down the ground really well, and able to pinpoint targets from the half back line directly into the middle and get the ball moving at times when we needed to. So yeah, Bobby Hill for me, very influential, and another player like you said, like Tom Mitchell, one that we haven't really had for a few years in terms of that exciting, dangerous forward. So yeah, Bobby.
Yeah, for sure. Can't disagree with Jack. I think over the course of the season, Tommy Mitchell, by virtue of the games he played, was probably the most influential over the course of the season. But just a couple of words on Billy Frampton as well. We finished on top of the ladder by one game, and I feel as if an early part of our season was a lack of tall stocks, and we were kind of talking about Dan McStay having to go into the ruck, and Billy Frampton hadn't really been tried in that position at that point in time. But I think there was between like round 5 or maybe like round 4 and round 7 or 8. We just had like to throw him in the middle, and we didn't know what we were going to get. But I felt as if he was more than serviceable at that point in the season, and really set us up to go into that bye. I think maybe having lost one game.
I think,
No.
we just lost to Melbourne. That was our second, and then we went to
Going
the bye.
into the
So,
bye. Yeah. So even though that's like kind of, you don't really talk about that sort of stuff, I feel as if he was crucial at a point in the season which made us the ones to be chased, and that was something that we were able to embrace throughout the latter parts of the season as we dropped a few games. So, obviously gets his premiership medallion as well. Another sort of fairy tale story, even with 2 disposals. Best 2 disposals of his life in that game, I'm sure. But yeah, Graham Wright, take a bow.
Yeah. I went Mitchell and Hill, and my big 2 was the most influential. Dan McStay, I'm sure we'd be talking a lot about him as well, had he have been in that premiership side too, because he filled a void that we desperately needed also inside forward 50, and when he did play, especially those 2 finals as well, he was superb inside forward 50, so it's fantastic that he's been able to play a role, and hopefully we can get him a premiership medal as
going
well.
forward. He's a big piece of
be
our
awesome.
pie.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we just look at isolating this year, but Dan McStay wasn't recruited for one season. He's got a few more years to come, and he's going to be very important.
Can't wait to see how he goes about it. What did I have next? Interesting one here, because it's not all, sunshines and rainbows here, even though we did win a flag, and we'll keep reminding everybody. Who was the player that disappointed you the most, Jack?
Oh, gee, disappointed is a harsh word, Nico. It was hard for me to come up for this one. Disappointed's not the word I would use to
This
describe
one's going on the reel.
this man, especially because of what he gave us last year and gave us this year, to be fair, in that game that I spoke about over in Port Adelaide. But it is Jamie Elliott. I think if you look at how important he was for us last year and then translate that into his form this year, I think he probably wouldn't be as impressed as he was with his form this year as he was last year. 6 really solid weeks in the middle of the season, and I think it makes me think maybe it was a structure thing. I can't put my finger on it who was in and who was out. Yeah, there you go. So maybe he presents better as that lead-up small forward, and that's his role, and then when that's taken away from him, can't excel as much. But yeah, he battled along. There's ways. One of my mates at the start of the year said when he got injured, he said, I think Jamie Elliott might be done. Jumped back on in that 6-week period, and then come the finals, he was back towards the Jamie Elliott might be done camp. So interested to see where Billy's career looks like moving forward. A few whispers that he might hang it up. I don't think that's going to be the case, but not so much a gripe on Billy. I think he's just probably been a product of, as Marcus just said, a Dan McStay coming in and his roles and his tools being taken away from him.
But how awesome for the journey he's had to finish as a premiership player.
So good.
If this is indeed his last game.
Yeah.
It's such a deserving reward.
For me, it's Ash Johnson. Might be a little harsh because he did have a fairly good first half of the year off memory. Came in and played a really pivotal role at times. But yeah, I thought there was a couple games in there where he didn't quite take the opportunity and could have really nailed down a spot in our best 22. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him at the final bit of the season due to injury. We probably would have got to see him, and that's why I feel a bit harsh giving him the most disappointed. But it's because I've probably got a lot of expectation on what he can become and develop into, and that's where the next sort of 2 seasons is going to be very important for him.
I'll jump in because I had Ash Johnson as well. I think coming off the final series last year, where he really did disappoint on the big stage, we were hoping for a strong pre-season and for him to come in and take that mantle. And of course, Dan McStay coming into the side, it was always going to be a good challenge for him to regain that spot and make it his. But it was just some of his efforts at times on the field that really disappointed me the most. So I get what you're saying. It might be harsh to say that he disappointed me throughout the entire season, because there were definitely stages in that first half of the campaign where you felt, this guy's genuinely going to give us a lot inside forward 50, but he just couldn't grasp that chance for long enough, and then unfortunately he got injured. Now, we could be having a very different conversation had he not been injured at the end of the year and he plays in that grand final, but does he play the role that Billy Frampton does on Harris Andrews on grand final day? There's a lot of what ifs about that, but the point being, I just feel like we need to see a lot more from Ash Johnson. I mean, we all saw what he did in the VFL against Frankston. That probably didn't sit right with a few people, but I just feel like there's so much potential unlocked that still needs to be unlocked in Ash Johnson, and I really hope over the next 6 to 12 months, knowing that spots in that forward line, especially after the trade period, is going to be tough to get a hold of, that he can really take himself to the next level. But we'll see how he goes.
Yep, for sure. I think Ash is going to learn a lot from being on the sidelines for that premiership for sure. Look, the one I've gone with is a little bit left field in terms of how I've interpreted disappointed. It's more that I was disappointed for him, and it's actually Charlie Dean. And he was a guy that I was really hoping could come in and maybe give us a look at what our defence looks like in a world without Jeremy Howe. I think Howie goes around again next year, but he's probably 33, 34 going into next season and playing a full year of footy. Well, Scott Pendlebury, but, I'm sure any AFL footballer will tell you that they're a little bit sorer for a little bit longer at that point in their career. So I'm really hoping... I know Charlie played the last VFL final of the year, Nico. He actually got on the park unscathed. So with his foot problems, it's fingers crossed very much so. But, I'm trying to transform my disappointment for him into hoping that he can actually be a starting contributor in our defence, because I do think we're still a little bit short.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to play a big role next year, I think, Charlie Dean, and fingers crossed he can get himself fully fit for it. What's your early 2024 prediction?
Well, here I was thinking I was being nice and clever and coming up with something different, but Marcus has just gone off with it there. My 2024 prediction was Charlie Dean as the incumbent young gun for next year. So I echo everything Marcus has just said. I think I didn't realise the man mountain we have on our hands in Charlie Dean until we went down and watched training in grand final week. He can play that key defender role. He's big enough to, provided, again, he can get fit for a full season. So hopefully really excited for him next year. And I think he was injured this time last year, Nick, if I'm not mistaken. So an off season of rehabilitation. So hopefully coming off unscathed this year, that he can just have a summer of getting himself right for next year and bigger things to come, Lukey.
Mine's a bit boring. Back to back.
It's not boring at all, mate.
Nick Brownlow. I honestly think we go even better next year. I just think there were games this year where we could have really put a side away and didn't, and end up winning a close one, which is exciting and fun. But I feel like we could almost go to a bit of a 2011 level next year and just start putting some teams away and hopefully make the most of it at the pointy end of the year and not have people questioning our credentials as the best side in the comp. I feel like probably for a year and a half we've been the best side in the competition, and to really stamp that authority, let's go and do it again next year. And I think Nick as well, if he plays a full year, there's no way he doesn't win the Brownlow, so that's mine.
So just a prediction for next year.
Yep.
Anything. Honestly, I'm not sure if you boys heard, but Isaac Quaynor, coming back to him, wrote he wanted to make the All-Australian team, win a premiership medallion, and I think he wanted to buy a Rolex as well at the start of the season, and he came so close to almost achieving all of those things. I think he genuinely can make the All-Australian team next year, so that's my prediction with a huge year for Q in store. Nico, yours?
I've got two. A less realistic one, Dacos does the treble. Copeland, Brownlow, Norm Smith middle. A bit of a more realistic one, I said Isaac Quaynor will be elevated to the leadership group in 2024. There's a spot there with Taylor Adams gone, of course. He'll be 24 at the start of the year. He's already showing qualities. I mean, we heard what Nick Maxwell said when he was in the studio here earlier this year. I just think this is the time for Quaynor to really step up in that category. It feels like he's somebody that wants that challenge, wants that responsibility, and I can't wait to see what he can do with that potential.
When you're in the gym 3 days after you won the flag, you're not doing yourself any disservice, are you, Nico?
No, not at all. Now, what we'll do, and sorry, Luke, we're going to get you out of this one for a second, but we had our season preview predictions at the start of this year, of course, and some similar questions were raised. So with Jack and Marcus, I'm pretty keen to see how these ones fared across what was an extraordinary 2023 campaign. So our Copeland predictions, Jack, you had Jordan De Goey, Marcus was Jack Chris, but you did say that Josh Dacos was the one to watch out for, and I said Darcy Moore. but I did say he'd earn All-Australian Premiership captain. So
Who would you have said, Lukey?
Josh Stacey.
You're kidding. I didn't think De Goey was that bad of a call in the end. He finished 10th and missed a few games, so who knows what could have happened with a full season.
Well, that suspension really did cost him in the end. I think probably with the Brownlow as well. Not that he would have won the Brownlow, but he certainly would have probably polled a lot better.
He's not a big vote getter.
No, he's not.
Really. Like, I think we're at that point in his career where it's never going to come for him where he's getting threes every week or anything.
On him though, like I think how good has this year been from like it's never been more clear what Jordan De Goey's role within this side is. You know, obviously a couple with injury and off-field nonsense over the past sort of 5 years, we haven't really known if he's a power forward or a power midfielder or a hybrid of both. But again, with Tommy Mitchell coming to this side, just what it's unlocked for someone like a Jordan De Goey and his game this year, phenomenal. So really happy that we can all sit back now and really know what we can expect from Geordie over the next 2 or 3 years.
It's a great call. You finally feel as if that coinciding with all of the off-work stuff, off the field, stuff that he's done, you can define Jordan De Goey finally in terms of how he fits into this team. It's been a long time coming.
Yep, terrific. Most goals, Jack and I had Dan McStay. Marcus, you went with Jamie Elliott for a bit of a left field. Ended up being Brody Mychik again. We might as well just pick him every time. But I think that's extraordinary in itself that we were able to recruit Dan McStay and have so many contributors in our forward line and even in the midfield, yet Brody Mychik still comes across and wins our leading goal kicker award. It's just a credit to the workhorse-like mentality he's got. Was able to get his career high twice this year too. Finally was able to get himself that important bag. But yeah, fantastic for Brody Mychik to continue playing that role for us.
Pop quiz, against which teams?
Sydney was able to get that one.
Yes.
Remember the outstanding goal that
Was
he
that
kicked
the
on the
first
goal line?
time he got the 5?
Yep.
that was
Yeah,
the
Yep.
first time ever.
Was the other one? Oh, good question.
Wasn't the Cats, was it?
Yes. Yes, the second time we
second
played
time?
Geelong. Great call, because it was overshadowed by Cameron kicking 7, half of them illegal. But anyway,
Kicking them from row EE.
Exactly
on
right.
the episode, Nico.
It gets further down the alphabet the longer it
Yeah.
goes on, which is great
Yeah.
from you, Jack.
it's a big year for, Jack, you said Nick Dacos. Give yourself a pat on the back for that one. You said Josh Dacos, so you can definitely take the credit for
The
that too.
Dakai.
I said Hayden Begg, not quite. Had a tough year
Dude,
as
he's
well.
still on the
Beggy.
list?
Yeah, still on the list. Had his time in the VFL. Well, you got to remember, at the time we were talking, it was all about Ruckman, and who would have known that Cameron Cox would play.
Did he play?
Didn't play a senior game this year.
That was last year. He played
Yeah,
a game
yes,
or two. Yeah.
yes. So I'll give a big X for that one. Most influential recruit, you went Tom Mitchell, you went Billy Frampton. Tom Mitchell, Marcus, Billy Frampton. I went with Bobby Hill. I think we can all give ticks for that. They all finished as premiership
All got
players,
medals.
so-
Big props
Exactly
to you as
right.
well, Nico. You've been singing Bobby Hill's praises.
I said he
right
kicked
from
25 goals or more this year.
That was a
that
great
episode throughout and ended up being a North Smith medalist. So
I'll take
props
that.
to you as well, mate.
You said Anzac Day medalist, Marcus, as well. So you said Bobby Hill would win an Anzac Day medal. So
So he done one better.
Big game.
He did.
Big game player.
what would our record be after the first 6 games of the year? Jack, you went 3-3. Marcus and I were 4-2 and ended up being 5-1. So I think
Bit of faith.
absolutely. But Marcus, I think you can take a bow here. Our final ladder position, Jack was 6th. I was 5th to 6th. Marcus, you went 2nd.
I did. I didn't think that many teams would be better than us this season. And
Who do you
Stranger
have
things have
finishing on
happened.
top? Out of curiosity.
Did you say Brisbane were
couldn't
on
care
top?
less. It was just all about Collingwood getting
Yeah,
a top 4
true.
position. I don't do ladders, ladder predictors, Jacko. It's just all about the pies.
Well, I had one on Twitter, and I said Brisbane first, Collingwood second, and I
Did ya?
only didn't put Collingwood first because it'd be a bit too biased.
Oh,
yet
bias,
to-
yeah.
So I feel like I can get a tick there.
Yeah, we'll count that. I also, speaking of shocking goals, I said that Richmond would finish top 4 this year.
bottom 4?
No, I said top 4.
Did they finish bottom 4?
I don't think they
Nah,
finished
it wasn't
bottom 4,
it was
but
like 12 or something.
yeah,
For-
that
Bit of the season, it was
Well,
looking that way,
they had-
wasn't it?
they had Hopper and Taranto coming in. Lynch was going to be healthy. Oh, I don't know. I just thought that they were primed and ready, but I'm just glad it didn't happen. So they were our predictions from the start of the year. I don't think they were too off the mark. There were some good ones there.
This is so left field. I just had a thought.
Mm.
Adam Treloar, when he left the Giants, was offered a contract at Richmond.
Yep.
Chose Collingwood,
Mm-hmm.
and then got outed by us to go to the Dogs, and now we've won a flag. So he's missed 4 flags.
And if you're listening, Adam Trelaw, we hope that you enjoyed that little testimony.
That just clicked into my brain. Sorry, I had to
So he is
express
like
that.
He's
but that
0-2
is
in
very
grand
unlucky
final.
for a
He's-
good guy.
He is literally like Nathan Buckley in terms
Like,
of
that is bad
premiership,
luck.
grand final winning luck.
Fair
he's
income.
Obviously not the career like Bucks, but yeah, in terms of missing.
And he means so well, and he's the type of guy you want to
And
see
you
win a
can't see
flag.
the Dogs winning one
Well,
in the next few years.
did you hear
Got any
Bucks
money
today
left?
or yesterday say that we should have traded Brodie Grundy in 2019?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yep. He said the board were the ones that stopped it from happening.
Eddie,
And we probably would have
Eddie.
kept...
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we would have probably kept Adam Trelaw.
bored.
We probably would have kept Trelaw as a result,
And
I reckon.
had
And-
the cap for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he would have been a premiership player.
That was not a football department decision,
Nope,
I don't think.
Not
okay,
one bit.
so-
Oh,
Yeah.
well.
Every day we thank our lucky stars. We're out of that period of time, I think.
Yes.
As nice as 2018, 2019 were, but the repercussions
Past its use by date.
Mm,
of-
absolutely.
of all of that is, we're finally past it all. So
Yeah.
Go on, Jacko.
2018, fellas, it came up on the YouTube the other day. It is a completely different feeling watching that over again. I know Marcus made the call that he wouldn't watch the replay until we won one, but I have watched it since the loss before we won one, and it was bitterness, it was hatred, it was full of what ifs, and now it's like, it obviously is still a bit of like sour taste in my mouth because it's a Collingwood loss in a grand final. We were so close, and there's so many small moments within the game, but watching that back now, it's just like, you can have your 2018, you can have your Dom Sheed.
But see, that's why this meant so much,
Yeah,
2023,
exactly.
because we went through that in 2018. That's
Yeah.
why.
And a lot of prelims in between.
And that's
too.
what I take away from it is like, this means everything because of what we went through. And like, we're younger supporters, we haven't experienced it like some of the older ones, but we can say we have because we truly have over the last sort of five years or so.
That stat of not winning one in September since 58, in my opinion, and of course wearing my black and white jumper, is it means just as much, I think, to us as what the 36 years did for Richmond and what the 45, 50 years did for Melbourne. This is the first time we've won a flag normally without having to go the long way around via a draw or in October or whatnot. This is the most un-Collingwood-like win in a close game, in a great game, because, you know, how many times have we sat back, 2018, prime example of just, oh, what a great game of footy, just another bit of bad luck. We just missed out again, but now what? Like, we've finally done it, and it's just, it's awesome.
Now what have they got to say?
Yeah, exactly right. I'm just procrastinating for a second. Speaking of impromptu discussions, I'm just going to bring this up. Yesterday it came up on my memories that it had been 4 years ago since we signed Darcy Cameron to the club, right? And I want to just quickly get the comments from that post because they are dead set the funniest things. Do you remember
when we signed him?
Yeah, when we signed him from Sydney.
Yeah.
And we did a Pies Nation episode afterwards, and I reckon we spoke about him for about 30 seconds because we had no idea who he was, hadn't played any games for Sydney, and came across. And it's just crazy to think.
He played one.
Did he play one game,
Played
did he?
one game.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why I remember
And
that.
I don't know if he was really tearing it up in the NEFL or anything. It was
Nah,
just-
but he'd been on the list for at least
Yeah.
4 or 5 years and just hadn't got a crack. So
But it was just fascinating reading through, and give me a sec because they're about to come up. But it was fascinating reading through and talking about Grundy and Cox, and
yeah,
and in hindsight, it's just a wonderful thing thinking, you know, look what's happened now all of a sudden.
well, he's brought plenty off the field since we won
Yeah.
the
He's
grand
been-
final. He's been up there
Darryl
riding
was-
with the
BOG?
horses. Yeah,
BOG
the
post-match?
speed dealers on,
They've
and
said he's BOG, so
he would be putting them away.
Well, you just think about what he's been able to do since coming in. And I remember saying at the start of the year that AFL.com listed him as our most important player coming into the season, which I found pretty fascinating. But this is why I said Aiden Begg, because of the ruck situation we had, and we had just lost Grundy. How was it all going to work? But for him to have... Look, there were times where we didn't know where he was going to fit, and he had some pretty poor performances, especially in the lead up to finals, but certainly played his role.
I heard that he actually was carrying a knee problem in the latter half of the year. It wasn't really in the media too much, but I think Fly or one of the coaches might have said something after the granny. So I'm not saying that excuses some of his drop in form compared to what we saw last season, but I think it may explain why Coxie coming into the team and really knowing that if he didn't go 110% each week, he was going to be on the sidelines and then becoming the first choice ruckman. Like, had you thought that in your mind at the start of this season, like you would not predict Cox ahead of Cameron is what I'm trying to say. So fingers crossed he can get
How about
right path.
How about Coxie? He's a premiership player. That is another
He's
story.
the first American.
We touched on that prior to the, or maybe we did touch on it post the premiership win. But what a story that ends up being now is from the beginning to now a premiership player, the first American as well, and he's still probably got another year or two good in him. So.
And in 2018, I feel like it would have been a bit of a novelty had we got up and the burst out on the 2018 prelim stage against the Tigers and how amazing that was. But now it feels like it's Mason Cox the footballer, not Mason Cox the novelty that's a premiership player. Like as Marcus just said, he's first choice ruckman in this final series, and he made a difference from a playing perspective. It wasn't just another big body that was floating around for us. He
goes against
we don't win
the
it
best
without
ruck
him.
in the competition, Max Gawn, and he goes, "I'm going to take you out right now and set the scene," and that set the scene for that qualifying final.
CWS goal in the prelim as well.
Tap the ball to Nick, to Pendles, to Goey.
Exactly. Yep.
He started it.
He spoke about that on his podcast, and he said, "I shouldn't be in here with these blokes." And he said, as soon as he's like, I'll just win the tap, and then leave me out of it. I should not touch the ball again. And to his credit, he just stood there and watched it all unfold in front of him.
So I finally got to the post, so apologies for the wait. But yeah, so Darcy Cameron, we've just signed him 15th of October 2019. Some of the comments, can only hope he does better than he was at the Swans. Only one senior game in 3 years. It's great to get a tall player. We need some height and a mature body to back up the others. But stop saying he's a replacement for Brodie Grundy. We have to keep Brodie Grundy. Hard to see him in the side with Grundy being our ruck for another 7 years. Ooh. What happens to Max Lynch now? The last ruckman we got from Sydney was Darren Jolly. You know what all happened there, and that ended up being true. How's this one, though? Why are we not targeting Josh Jenkins?
Oh, jerker.
You don't lose ability overnight. Is he a backup for Grundy leaving? Surely this spells the end for Cox. How are we not targeting Jenkins? Let's hope this is a better Sydney trade than Jesse White or Sam Murray. But yeah, I just had to read some of those because I just thought, how funny is hindsight 4 years later?
Was that asked Pies Nation?
Yes, asked a long time ago. All right, let's get back on track a little bit and move on to speaking of the trades in the free agency period, because there were two big moves from a Collingwood point of view. The first one is the departure of Taylor Adams. When we last did our episode a couple of weeks ago and we were celebrating our premiership, it was all about got to win another one for Taylor. Let's hope he can get back on the list and we can win a premiership medal. And then the Sunday afterwards, he was pretty much out the door and wanted to go to Sydney. Came out during the week that he actually seeked a trade during grand final week, seeing what his options were, maybe sort of writing on the wall, I'm not sure. We had him on our podcast, of course, and talked so glowingly about the club and the fans and what they've done to get his career and his season back on track with all the injuries he had faced. And yeah, I think it's still a bit of a shock that all of a sudden he's decided to head off, and then the move to Sydney was pretty much done from that point onwards. So I just want to get your thoughts, boys, on, I guess, the impact he had at the club, first of all, and then your reaction to such a surprising bit of trade news.
Yeah, pretty shattered, quite frankly. Sat in this very studio, gave up his time to have a yarn to us, and has been, in my opinion, seminal in what the culture that has been built over the place. Again, I know everyone talks about Flyers Pies last 2 years, but there's still a core group there for the better part of the last 10, and they've still transferred aspects of what they were cultivating during Buckley's tenure into Flyers. It wasn't just like Fly got there and like magic happened. I really believe that. So Tay clearly looking for a bit more stability. I didn't know that he'd shopped around during grand final week. That's big. But yeah, look, I wish him all the best at the same time, because I think he's the type of guy who can hold his head high, not dissimilar to Brodie Grundy in terms of what they brought to the place off the field, but a lot of wonderful memories. Used to love his aggression and grunt when he first got to the club. I thought that was something we were missing, and I think guys like Braden Maynard really loved seeing that from a more senior figure, and it's paved the way for players like Bruzzy to be controlled but aggressive. So yeah, all the best, Tay, but bit shattered.
Yeah, no, I think when you touched on Tom Mitchell and him speaking about his exit at Hawthorn, I felt that's what probably a similar feeling Tay was having at Collingwood. I guess obviously over the final series with his injury and then grand final week, and then looking towards next year, and you got guys like Finn McRae who are bursting to get into this side and looking towards. He probably, I don't know what his contract status was. Was it
McRae, he'll be
no,
contracted for next.
Taylor.
Yeah, he still had one more year.
One more year.
Yep.
And then I feel like he was probably struggling to get a confirmation on past that one more year. Goes to Sydney, gets 3 years, and gets the role that he's always wanted to be playing, and he lost that, I guess, in the last 6 months here at Collingwood, and he spoke about that with us on the podcast, and we probably kind of foreshadowing deep down he really does want to get back to playing that inside mid role and full-time midfielder. So yeah, unfortunate for him, but I guess I'm not too shocked at the end of the day, because he's got to do what's best for him, and I wish him all the best, and he'll honestly be Sydney's best midfielder now, so should kill it there with Brodie.
Yeah,
That'll be cool to see.
The boys have nailed it there, Nico. I think because of the timing of it all, I think it's very much been painted over the mould that he's missed out on a flag, and then he might be a bit bitter, so he's jumping ship and going away from it. But I don't think that's the case at all. I think the writing, as Luke said, was on the wall well before he was pulled out of the race to play in the grand final. I think you see it so often, players who their body does let them down frequently, unable to get on the park. Sometimes the best thing for them is just a fresh start somewhere else. In a familiar environment, it should be said, in Sydney for Tay, obviously coming from GWS. So I really do wish him all the best. It's like a bit tough for me because he's been my favourite player since his time he's been here. I'll never forget 2018 we played Freo and we're up by 70 points and he was on Fife at the time, and he left Fife to go run 50 metres sprint to lock the ball inside our 450 and smother a ball to go out of bounds. And I was like, that's the sort of bloke that standard that he sets just will cascade and ripple through the younger ranks of the club. And yeah, it was so cool to have him on this year on the podcast, and I really do wish him all the best, and I hope that along with Brodie, as Luke just mentioned, they can go up in Sydney and have success, except for 1 or 2 games whenever they have to play us. So.
Yeah, it's going to be weird watching Grundy and Adams, I think, up in Sydney in their colours. But yeah, Adams, terrific servant for our club, and wishing him nothing but the best. If there is any silver linings to it, it means we had the chance to go and sign Lachie Schultz, and as of today, we were able to officially welcome him to the Pies. Comes in with 90 games and 101 goals from his time at Freo since he got drafted in 2018. He kicked 33 goals this year for the Dockers, and 2 consecutive top 10 best and fairest finishes at that club as well. He's dynamic, speedy. I think he's going to play a fantastic role in that forward line. It's going to be hard to say, but you'd argue that this is probably the most potent forward line we're going to have in quite a while when you add the likes of McStay, Myercheck and Bobby Hill to that mix. It's so exciting as a Collingwood supporter, and you feel like Schultz is someone that can fit the mould perfectly. It won't take too long to adjust to our game style, and can really take this opportunity by the scruff of its neck.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see whether Billy does hang him up now, if there was something going on that we don't know about as fans, and what it means for Jack Ginnivan, because I think he's probably most exposed with this inclusion trade period still very much alive and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, a bit of a shock, to be honest, to see Tay leave and then Lachie Schultz come in. Certainly the Lachie Schultz bit was not on my radar. I don't know about anyone else had any mail about him wanting to return to Victoria, but gee whiz, you hate losing players like that if you're the Dockers. I know they've lost Liam Henry as well. You invest all this time and resources into them, and then basically as they start to hit the peak of their powers, they're off. So sucks for them, but giving up, I think, pick 34 and a future first rounder probably feels like the right decision. I just hope that we do reserve some draft picks in the coming seasons for key position players, because I think there is going to still be a need there for some big boys to keep the premiership window open.
Yeah, and that's, I think, why they were driving a pretty hard bargain. Freo was that it is frustrating for them to lose a good player. To be honest, I don't know a lot about him. I know he's a pretty dynamic small forward, and he will go straight into our best forward line, I think. I think Ginnivan, he's spoken about moving a bit more into the midfield and doing a lot of work in there with the VFL, and he's got a big pre-season coming up, I think.
Massive.
It was a bit frustrating, just all the talk about all of a sudden he's going to leave now. I never thought that was going to be the case, because he has openly spoken about his bit more movement into the midfield and building his fitness base. So I think, he's going to have a big pre-season, but good to get Schultz in. And like you said, Nico, it's a pretty exciting forward line.
That's good when you speak about pushing himself into the midfield.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to see what this off-season looks like for Jack and what his attitude going into season 2024 is, with someone like a Schultz coming in who, as you said, Luke, he's going to be a walk-up start. So Jack Ginnivan probably the most likely one as we sit here right now that will make way for him. Interesting, I was copped a bit of... don't like saying this name too much, but Will Schofield's podcast recently, and it was Lockie Shields talking about his contract situation up to date. I think he's been in the system for 4 years or 5 years now, and he's had 1 year contracts every single year, so he's never been guaranteed the following year. So I can sort of understand why he sort of looked for a move away from Freo and
You got 5 years with us, is it?
I don't know what the exact term is.
4 with a trigger for a 5th.
There you go.
Yeah, which is what he's been on. He'd just be like, that'd be heaven for him. A bit of peace of mind and a bit more clarity in where he's at. So not sure where he's from initially, but I know he's won...
Uroa or a Chuka, or he's Victorian.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
It starts with E.
Is it?
Country
Is
boy.
he coming home?
Yeah.
I think it's Uroa, which
Same.
is where
It's
Billy's
Jamie Elliott,
from. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like
but
that.
yeah, he'll be a worthy inclusion for us this year, and I think I forgot what I was going to say now, but yeah, no, I'm looking forward to what he can bring.
Yeah, can't wait to see what he can produce
Moama.
for us. Moama, there you go.
Tricky
The
Moama.
Moama Magpies.
Yeah,
was where he was playing.
Moama Magpie turn Collingwood Magpie.
Also a former Williamstown boy too. Played in the grand final against Richmond, who was coached by Fly, and they went down. So there you go.
Very nice.
Also, we announced some delistings last week as well. Trent Bianco, Trey Rusco, Arlo Draper, Cooper Murley, and Tom Wilson were all let go by the club. Any surprises there? Maybe felt like Bianco maybe was a touch stiff, had some really good moments in the VFL. Trey Rusco maybe depth-wise, but other than that, it's probably a little accurate. You have to get rid of some people, don't you?
Personally, yeah, not a huge amount. Yeah, maybe Trent Bianco if one, but Lukey not massive. Nah.
Yeah, I think you could see it. A premiership side's always going to lose a couple of good ones, and Bianco should get an opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah.
Rusco's going to head back to Perth, I think.
Yeah.
He's just unlucky. He might get an opportunity as well. But yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, really on the whole, not surprised. Initially, now that it's fizzled out, not that bad, but I was really shocked by the Trey Rusco one initially. Nico, I thought if you go back and watch his game on Anzac Day and the circumstances around his selection in that week and how he handled that whole situation, I really felt that was a bit of a, righto, this is a maturing player that has matured since he debuted for us back in 2020, and to step on that stage, half-back flank, had some really key moments and a really solid game throughout, I thought. So I thought that was something he could have built on, some really solid VFL form throughout this year as well. I was a little bit shocked that with, blokes like, Jeremy Howe and the likes, and Murph, who knows where his career is at the moment with concussion. So, yeah, a little bit strange that a bloke like Trey Rusco, who has built himself a nice bit of a career off halfback, got the chop. Trent Bianco was the other one as well. But, yeah, probably just his size and the position he plays, it's unlikely that he's going to break into this side.
Yeah, Murph was my next point, because without getting too much into it in terms of what the future does look like, there have been some concerns about whether he will play again after the concussion he copped in the grand final. We know he's had a long history of concussions and head injuries. Of course, his welfare is the top priority here. So for our sake, we hope that he does whatever's best for him. And if that means that he doesn't pull on the black and white again, well, it's going to be a shame, but we'll be just as grateful for what he did produce for us. But it's sad to hear careers ending potentially in this way without being too forthright or without predicting what's going to happen. But outstanding contribution Murph has made to this club, and hopefully he's able to get back on his feet one way or another soon.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. Copeland, let's start to wrap up with that. Josh Dacos winning it. What an achievement that is for him to win a best and fairest, not just any year, but in a premiership year, for all the setbacks he's had to go through early in his own career. To emerge as the Copeland Trophy winner against such a stacked list of top 5 and top 10 entrants. Of course, Nick Dacos and Braden Maynard who were ultra impressive, finishing equal second. You had Tom Mitchell coming into fourth. Pendles with just another standard top 5 finish for him. Quainer, Chris, Mychek, Moore, DeGoey all rounding out the top 10. So for Josh to be on top of all of those as the most consistent and the most best and most fairest player at our football club, that's nothing we can sell short.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful year for Josh. Could be the best of his career. So, yeah, lap it up.
And he's come from a point where he was almost losing his spot on the list, and to get to where he is now, he doesn't get the accolades across, I guess, the general football public and footy media that he probably should, but at least Collingwood circles, he's known as one of our most important and best players, and he fully deserved this.
Yeah, it's forgotten that how far he's come in such a short period of time and how hard he's had to work to be where he is. I think he really has benefited from his brother playing as well. That combo is going really well. So
AFLW, geez, I'm going to love talking about this. Collingwood beating Carlton. So good. 17-point winners in the end at Icon Park. Did you see a tweet, maybe you saw it, Luke, yesterday, about the fact that 8 seasons of AFLW and we're yet to play Carlton at home? Absolute joke. It's like the Sydney in the men's comp. It's ridiculous. But got the 17-point win in the end. We now move inside the top 8. I remember when we did our last episode, we had just come off a loss to St Kilda. Didn't really know where we were going to fit in the finals equations, but all of a sudden, with I think 3 rounds to go, we are definitely a chance of playing finals.
Yeah, in some really good form, three wins in a row, and the win against Carlton was a good one. And I feel like it's tough for the girls because the season's so short that they don't really get to get in the flow of things, and it's taken us a few weeks to get into the flow of things. And now it looks like we're rolling, and we can finish the year well, and hopefully be a contender and in the final series. But yeah, it's a detriment on the season that it's so short that certain teams aren't going to be able to make a run at it. And you look at like Carlton, as much as we hate them, they started this year pretty ordinary in the AFL, in the men's competition, and then managed to pull off what they did in the second half of the year and almost get all the way. So, hopefully, I think going forward they're going to have at least 12 games.
Yeah, 11
next
or 12.
Year. But I think you need to get closer to sort of 16 to 18 games.
Play everyone once.
With 18 teams in it, give everyone a good chance to get their season going. You have one hamstring injury, and your season's halfway done pretty much. So, all the best for the girls, and hopefully they can go all the way like us.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, we take on the Cats at Victoria Park this Sunday, 1:05. So that's going to be an intriguing match as well. I believe the Cats, they're 6 as well. So that's going to be a crunch contest for the girls. But that's going to be it, boys.
Fantastic.
That is it for season 2023. A
Fantastic.
couple of quick thank yous I should mention. First to Adrian and Rob for allowing us to do what we do and to helping us move to the visual landscape. So hopefully you're enjoying our faces. If you haven't by now, I don't know what to tell you, so sorry. But it's definitely been not just on-field watching Collingwood as the best year yet, but for our podcast, our humble little podcast, it's been fantastic. We've been able to get to this medium and reach a lot more of our beloved Fires fans. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, and thanks Adrian and Rob for making that possible. To Derek, our producer, who's had to deal with us all year round, thank you for all the work you've been able to do behind the scenes. Hopefully your Saints might have a better year next year, so we'll see how we go with that. To every single person that has listened to us, has watched us, follows us on social media, has brought us merch, any way they have in supporting our podcast, could not thank you enough. It's the reason we do what we do, as we say each and every year, and especially for us to have been able to enjoy a premiership with all of you guys. It's been second to none, and one that I think will stick with us all for a long, long time. So thank you to everyone who has supported us along the way. And to you three, Jack, Luke and Marcus, thank you, boys, for another fantastic year.
The best.
Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, because I can't think of a more memorable year for this podcast.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of a slog. Obviously, we knew it through those COVID years to get the episodes out, and it felt like a just reward 5 years in, and to be able to celebrate a premiership with guys, especially you two. I didn't even know yous when we first started this thing, and complete strangers, and then picking Jack up along the way, and now we're all best of Collingwood mates, you know, and able to celebrate the premiership together. So yeah, really privileged, and hopefully we can keep it going into the coming years. But yeah, thanks to everyone, all our listeners, all our supporters, buying the merch or tip jars as well. We've had a few little tip jars come through over the past couple of weeks, which is really nice, and it kind of keeps this thing going. Then hopefully we can keep pushing.
Before you guys add comments, yeah, it's the best way to support us and what we do at the podcast here. We love the designs that come in, but it's not just for us. We want you guys to enjoy it and embrace it too. So if you can, buy a piece of merch, head to our tip jar. Even if you subscribe to our YouTube and give us a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, it means the world to see that support. So thank you very much from all of us.
Yeah, Nico, of course, won the premiership this year, so it's the best year ever. But I think last year, remember, we were sort of doing a season review and speaking about how fun last year was with all the close wins. I think the actual home and away season this year, and even the finals leading up to the grand final this year, is equally, if not way better. And obviously the cherry on top is the cuff, and yeah, so fortunate to be able to live through that and then to come in every week and spend that with you boys. It's been so much fun. So thank you to you boys, and yeah, thank you to, as Lukey and Nico touched on, thank you to everyone that listens and everyone that comes and says g'day at the games, buys some merch. It's it's really cool to be able to put your energy towards something like this week in, week out, and for people to actually listen to it. So yeah, really cool.
It's crazy to think about, isn't it? Any big summer plans, boys, before we wrap up?
All good, just nice and quiet.
Nice and quiet, yeah.
Might watch the grand final.
Yeah,
I've pre-ordered the box set.
A box set.
Every single game from the year. Did you see that?
I got KO.
I think no. You need it. You need
just the memento.
Memento. But it's got every single game from the year, the 3 finals, the grand final. I think it's like 26 discs or something like that. It's I don't think they release it till about December, but hopefully it's here and I can sit back and watch a few of them over the summer.
Beautiful.
Well, I don't need an excuse to drink a beer this summer, that's for sure, Nico. If there's any half a chance, it will just be to celebrate the flag. So,
absolutely.
But heading over to Fraser Island in 3 weeks' time, really looking forward to that. Nico, last year got to tick off the Cape York Peninsula, and this year get to tick off Fraser Island. So hopefully there's a big Marlin or big GT or something like that on the end of my fishing rod. That'd be nice, but looking forward to that.
Lovely to hear. Well, until next year, hopefully. I've been your host, Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening or watching to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold.